On a night that was supposed to belong to Caitlin Clark, a very different story took over in Indianapolis. What was planned as a celebration of a superstar's global influence turned into a showcase of grit, toughness, and defiance from the Indiana Fever players who weren't supposed to carry this moment. The spotlight was built for Clark, with her Nike logo plastered across the arena, her image on promotional shirts, and fans snapping photos against backdrops bearing her name. But Clark herself wasn't playing. She was sidelined once again with the groin injury that had already stretched deep into the summer. The irony was almost cruel. The biggest night of her young brand power turned into the ultimate test for a team that had been gutted by injuries and left short-handed against one of the most experienced rosters in the league. It should have been the kind of setup where Indiana simply tried to survive. Without Clark, without Sophie Cunningham, without Arie McDonald, without Sydney Colson, and with Chloe Bibby still limited, the Fever had to scrape together lineups and trust players to handle roles they weren't built for. Their guard rotation was wrecked. Their offense had to be reimagined. And the opponent wasn't some rebuilding squad. It was the Seattle Storm, a playoff-caliber team sitting above Indiana in the standings. A loss would have tightened the rope around their playoff chances even further. The urgency was real, and everyone in the arena felt it. Indiana had lost 4 of their last 5 games. They were holding the final playoff spot by a thread, their margin for error vanishing by the night. And yet, in the middle of all that pressure, something unexpected happened. It started with a collision that silenced the building. In the first quarter, Lexie Hull dove under the basket for a loose ball, colliding head-to-head with Gabby Williams. The sound was sickening. Both players hit the floor, stunned and clutching their heads. Hull walked gingerly toward the locker room, holding her forehead as a swelling knot formed almost instantly. On the broadcast, the camera caught the bump growing by the second, a visible lump that made fans wince from their seats. It looked like her night was over. For a Fever team already missing half its rotation, losing Hull on top of it all seemed like a breaking point. And here's the thing, Hull isn't the star scorer. She isn't the one dropping 30 points. But what she does is irreplaceable. She defends the best perimeter players. She hustles for every loose ball. She sacrifices her body for rebounds and sparks energy that others feed on. On a night when Indiana was already running on fumes, her absence felt like the one blow they couldn't absorb. The silence inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse told you everything. Fans weren't just concerned about the bump, they were concerned that the team simply couldn't hold on without her. But then, against every expectation, Hull re-emerged. Minutes later, she checked back in, the swelling still visible, the knot unmistakable. And the first thing she did was throw herself onto the floor for another loose ball, diving headfirst into the chaos like nothing had happened. The crowd erupted. What should have been the end of her night became the spark that lit the building on fire. Every teammate saw it, every fan felt it. That single act of toughness redefined the game. Hull admitted later that she felt dazed and confused after the hit, but she didn't care. She knew her team needed her, and she wasn't going to sit down. "If I can play, she explained. "Whether or not I look good isn't the problem. The team is the most important thing. If I can contribute in any way, I'm going to do it, even if I'm hurt." That mentality spread like wildfire. Aaliyah Boston called her the definition of tough. Coach Stephanie White said Hull epitomizes the grit of this team, and the numbers backed it up. 9 rebounds, a game best plus-minus of +31, and defensive plays that turned Seattle's rhythm inside out. What looked like a disaster became the turning point of the night, and once the Fever had that toughness locked in, the rest of the roster began to take over. Without Clark's outside shooting, Indiana turned to the interior, and Aaliyah Boston delivered one of her most dominant performances of the season. She bulldozed her way to 27 points and 9 rebounds, outmuscling Seattle's front court and leaving them without answers. Every possession looked the same. Boston setting up deep, demanding the ball, and powering through defenders who simply couldn't match her strength. The Storm tried doubling her, tried crowding her, and still watched helplessly as she finished at the rim or kicked out to teammates for clean looks. By halftime, Indiana had already doubled Seattle's rebounding numbers. By the end, the Fever had outboarded them 42-21. That's not just winning a battle, that's tearing apart an opponent's foundation. But Boston wasn't doing it alone. Odyssey Sims, signed late into the season, played like she had been there for years. Her 22 points came from fearless attacks to the rim and confident jumpers, capped off by a deep three from the logo that turned the arena into chaos. That shot wasn't just 3 points, it was a declaration. Indiana wasn't surviving this night. They were taking it over. Sims played with a swagger that fed into Boston's dominance and raised the confidence of everyone around her. And then there was Kelsey Mitchell, steady as ever, pouring in 21 points of her own. Whenever Seattle tried to spark a run, Mitchell answered with her jumper, her drives, her consistency. She gave Indiana exactly what they needed: balance. With Boston destroying the interior, Mitchell made sure the Storm couldn't collapse the paint without paying for it on the perimeter. Together, the trio of Boston, Sims, and Mitchell turned what looked like desperation into dominance. By the fourth quarter, the Fever weren't just winning, they were in control. Seattle looked overwhelmed, frustrated, and outmatched. Indiana's defense forced them into just 3 fast break points all night. Their physicality dictated the pace. Their aggression turned every rebound into a chance to run. And when the final buzzer sounded on a 95-75 victory, it wasn't just a win, it was a statement. Indiana had swept Seattle in the season series, 3-0, and vaulted themselves back into 6th place in the playoff race, and all of it happened on Caitlin Clark's night, while Clark smiled from the sidelines, cheering her teammates. In a warm-up fit with her Nike logo plastered everywhere, the Fever proved something bigger. They proved they're more than one superstar. They proved they can fight, they can win, and they can do it while shorthanded against a veteran team. That identity, the toughness, the resilience, the balance, might be the most valuable thing they could discover with just weeks left in the season. And here's the kicker: Caitlin Clark is almost back. For the first time since mid-July, she has returned to full practice sessions, testing herself against live contact and defensive pressure. Coach Stephanie White made it clear they won't rush her, but the signs point to her being close. With only 6 games left and the playoff race tightening by the day, her comeback could completely change the Fever's ceiling. Imagine Boston dominating the paint with Clark stretching the floor. Imagine Sims' pace paired with Clark's vision in transition. Imagine Mitchell finding even more open looks with defenses scrambling to contain the rookie phenom. That's the version of Indiana no one has seen yet. That's the version that could flip the playoff picture upside down. But here's the truth. What Indiana showed against Seattle wasn't about waiting for Clark. It was about showing who they are right now. It was about proving they can withstand injuries, distractions, and adversity and still impose their will. It was about toughness. And it all started with Lexie Hull walking back onto the court with a knot on her forehead and refusing to give in. This was more than one win. This was the night the Fever announced themselves as a team to be reckoned with, whether Caitlin Clark is on the floor or not. So now the question goes to you. Did this game prove Indiana is more than just Clark's team? And what do you think their ceiling becomes once she's back in uniform? If you've got the Fever, let us know in the comments, hit like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss a moment. Because one thing is clear, the Fever's story is just getting started.